close your eyes now, and let me take you somewhere peaceful, somewhere ancient and alive with quiet wonder. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of an old forest as evening approaches. The air here is different, cooler, softer against your skin. There's a reason you feel instantly calmer. The trees around you are releasing organic compounds called phytoncides into the air, natural oils they use to protect themselves from insects and decay. When you breathe these in, something remarkable happens in your body. Your cortisol levels begin to drop, your heart rate slows, and your nervous system gently shifts into a state of rest. The Japanese have a name for this, Shinrin-yoku, or forest bathing. It's not exercise or hiking, it's simply being present among the trees, letting them work their ancient medicine on your weary mind. As you take your first steps along a moss-covered path, notice how the forest floor gives slightly beneath your feet. This softness isn't accidental. You're walking on hundreds of years of fallen leaves, decomposed wood, and rich organic matter, a spongy carpet that can absorb up to 20 times its weight in water. This is why forests are sometimes called the Earth's kidneys. Each acre of healthy forest soil can hold nearly 1 million gallons of water, releasing it slowly into streams and underground aquifers, purifying it as it filters down through countless layers of roots and minerals. The light here is different too. Look up through the canopy, and you'll see only about 2 to 5% of the sunlight from above actually reaches the forest floor. The leaves overhead work together like thousands of tiny umbrellas, creating this dim, ethereal twilight that exists here even at midday. This gentle filtering of light is why the forest feels like a sanctuary, a cathedral of living columns where time moves differently, where the harsh edges of the world grow soft. Listen now, do you hear it? That profound quiet? A mature forest can reduce noise pollution by up to 75% compared to open areas. The leaves, the bark, the very density of the trees absorb sound waves, creating this hushed atmosphere that allows you to hear subtler things, the distant call of a wood thrush, the whisper of wind through pine needles, the soft creaking of branches settling in for the night. And beneath your feet, invisible to your eyes, an entire network pulses with life. The trees around you are connected through their roots by thread-like fungi, miles upon miles of microscopic filaments that link one tree to another in what scientists call the wood wide web. Through this network, a mother tree can recognize her own offspring and send them nutrients. When a tree is dying, it releases its resources back into this system, feeding its neighbors, ensuring the forest continues long after it falls. Even now, as you stand here in this peaceful place, the trees are communicating in their slow, patient language, sharing sugars, sending warnings about insects, supporting the weak and the young. You are standing in the presence of a community that has been caring for itself since long before you were born, and will continue long after you rest. Let yourself settle deeper into this gentle darkness. The forest asks nothing of you. It simply grows, breathes, and offers its calm. As twilight deepens, you find yourself drawn further along the path, and the forest begins to prepare for night. There's a shift happening all around you, subtle but profound. The temperature is falling now, degree by gentle degree. Even on the warmest summer day, a forest can be 10 to 20 degrees cooler than the surrounding open land. The trees create their own climate, their own weather system. Through a process called transpiration, each large tree can release hundreds of gallons of water vapor into the air every single day. Imagine that, a towering oak lifting water from deep in the earth, drawing it up through its trunk, and releasing it as a cool, invisible mist from its leaves. Millions of trees doing this together, and they become rainmakers, cloud weavers, crafting the very air you're breathing into something fresh and alive with moisture. Notice how you're breathing more deeply here, more fully. This isn't just your imagination finding peace. The air in a forest contains higher concentrations of oxygen and negative ions, those same refreshing particles you find near waterfalls and ocean waves. These negative ions attach to dust, pollen, and pollutants, pulling them down to the forest floor, leaving the air remarkably pure. 1 acre of trees can produce enough oxygen for 18 people for an entire year, while simultaneously filtering out tons of carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, and other pollutants. You are breathing some of the cleanest air on Earth right now, air that has been purified by this patient community of leaves. As you walk, your hand brushes against the rough bark of an ancient tree. How long has it stood here? Perhaps 200 years, perhaps more. Trees have their own sense of time that makes our human urgency seem like a brief flutter. A single tree can live for centuries, even millennia. Somewhere in California, there are bristlecone pines that were already old when the pyramids were young, nearly 5,000 years of watching seasons turn, of growing a fraction of an inch each year, of simply existing in quiet endurance. But even the younger trees around you now might be older than your great-grandparents, holding in their rings the memory of storms and droughts, of abundant summers and harsh winters, a living record written in wood. The forest floor beneath your feet is anything but still. Though it appears silent and sleepy, it's teeming with more life than you could possibly imagine. In just one handful of healthy forest soil, no more than what you could cup in your palm, there are more living organisms than there are people on Earth. Billions upon billions of bacteria, fungi, nematodes, and tiny arthropods, all working in intricate cooperation, breaking down the dead and feeding the living, cycling nutrients in an endless, generous loop. You're walking on top of the most complex and bustling city imaginable, and yet it makes no sound, demands no attention, simply does its essential work in darkness. Ahead, you notice a fallen tree, massive and moss-covered, slowly melting back into the earth. This is what foresters call a nurse log, and it's far from dead. As this old giant decomposes over decades, it will provide nutrients and shelter for hundreds of other organisms. Already you can see tiny saplings sprouting from its length, their roots drilling down through the soft, decaying wood to reach the soil below. Some of the forest's tallest trees began their lives this way, growing from the body of a fallen ancestor. Death and life are not opposites here, they're partners in an endless dance, each making the other possible. Even in falling, the tree continues to give, continues to nurture, continues to be part of the great breathing whole. Rest here for a moment beside this gentle giant. Let the forest hold you in its timeless rhythm, where nothing is wasted, where everything returns, where even endings are beginnings wearing a different face. Night is settling in earnest now, and the forest transforms once more. But don't be afraid of this darkness, it's a soft darkness, a welcoming one, full of its own particular magic. Your eyes are adjusting, finding shapes in the dimness, and you notice something curious, even in the deepest parts of the forest, you're never walking in complete shadow. The trees themselves seem to glow faintly, and in a way, they do. That greenness you saw in daylight, the chlorophyll that makes leaves emerald and vibrant, actually fluoresces very slightly in darkness, emitting a gentle red light invisible to our eyes but measurable, real. The forest is always glowing, always humming with light we cannot see. But there's another light here too, one you might glimpse if you're fortunate, the soft luminescence of foxfire, the bioluminescent glow of certain fungi growing on decaying wood. These mushrooms produce a cool, greenish light through a chemical reaction, creating tiny lanterns on the forest floor. Why they glow, scientists still aren't entirely certain, perhaps to attract insects that will spread their spores, perhaps for reasons we haven't yet dreamed. But here they are, nature's nightlights, older than electricity, older than candles, gentle reminders that even in darkness, the forest finds ways to shine. Listen to the quiet again. It's different now. The daytime birds have settled into sleep, tucked into hollows and hidden branches, their heads beneath their wings. But the forest is never truly silent. If you listen carefully, you might hear the high-pitched calls of bats emerging for their nightly hunt. A single bat can consume thousands of insects in one night, mosquitoes, moths, beetles, performing an invisible service that protects the forest from being overwhelmed by the small and hungry. And they navigate through this darkness using sound, sending out calls pitched too high for human ears and listening to the echoes that bounce back, painting a sound picture of the world around them. They can detect a single human hair in complete darkness. Imagine navigating your entire life through echoes, through the shape of silence, through sound made visible. The trees around you are still working, even now in darkness. You might think they would rest when the sun sets, but photosynthesis is only one of their many tasks. At night, trees focus on growing, their trunks expanding, their roots reaching deeper. Research has shown that many trees actually grow faster at night than during the day. In the coolness, with moisture rising from the soil, they can take up water more efficiently, can dedicate their energy to building themselves taller, stronger, wider. So even as you rest, the forest is slowly, patiently reaching upward, adding microscopic layers to its rings, becoming more of itself with each passing hour. Beneath the surface, that vast network of roots and fungi we spoke of earlier is most active now. When the forest quiets and temperatures drop, the flow of nutrients and chemical signals actually intensifies through the mycorrhizal web. Trees send surplus sugars to their neighbors during these nighttime hours, particularly to seedlings and saplings that struggle in the shade. Scientists have discovered that trees can reduce their own growth to allow more light to reach their offspring, essentially stepping back to give their children room to thrive. This is not competition, this is cooperation so profound it resembles love. The forest operates on principles of mutual aid, of collective success, of ensuring that the community survives even if individuals must sacrifice. And here's something beautiful to carry with you into sleep: forests breathe in rhythm with the planet. During the day, they inhale carbon dioxide and exhale oxygen. At night, the process reverses slightly, but the net effect over 24 hours is that forests are the lungs of the earth, processing something like 40% of the world's oxygen, moderating the atmosphere, keeping the very air breathable for creatures like you and me. Every breath you take is a gift from some forest, somewhere. Every inhalation connects you to this ancient system of exchange, this partnership between leaf and lung that has sustained life for hundreds of millions of years. Settle deeper now. Feel how the forest holds you without grasping, supports you without demand. Here, in this place of patient growth and quiet generosity, let yourself simply be. You've been walking for some time now, though time itself seems to have loosened its grip here. The forest at night operates on a different clock, one measured not in minutes but in seasons, not in hours but in lifetimes. Find a place to sit, perhaps against the trunk of an old tree, its bark rough and solid against your back. Feel how sturdy it is, how unmoved by the small winds that stir the leaves above. This strength comes from something remarkable. Wood is one of nature's most elegant engineering solutions. The cells that make up this trunk are arranged in a honeycomb pattern, creating a structure that is both incredibly strong and surprisingly light. A tree can support its own enormous weight, sometimes hundreds of tons, while remaining flexible enough to bend in storms rather than break. The secret lies in lignin, a complex polymer that reinforces the cell walls, making wood stronger than concrete pound for pound, yet capable of growing, healing, and adapting throughout the tree's entire life. This tree has weathered countless storms, each one teaching it to grow stronger in the direction the wind blows, building denser wood on the side that faces the greatest force. Trees learn from their struggles and become more resilient because of them. As you rest here, you might notice the scent of the forest growing richer, earthier. That smell, that distinctive petrichor in pine and ancient humus, is the fragrance of life itself. When rain falls on the forest, it releases a compound called geosmin, produced by soil bacteria called actinomycetes. These microscopic organisms are breaking down organic matter, and their metabolism creates this earthy perfume that humans can detect in concentrations as low as 5 parts per trillion. We're more sensitive to this smell than almost any other, perhaps because our ancestors learned that the scent of rain and soil meant water, meant life, meant survival. The forest smells like memory, like something buried deep in your cells that remembers when your ancestors walked beneath trees just like these, seeking shelter, seeking home. Above you, the canopy is a dark tapestry against the stars. But even on the cloudiest night, the forest canopy is performing an invisible miracle. The leaves and needles overhead are covered in tiny openings called stomata, microscopic mouths that can open and close. During the day, a single large tree might have tens of millions of these stomata on its leaves, each one making thousands of tiny adjustments every hour, opening to take in carbon dioxide, closing to conserve water, responding to temperature, humidity, light. It's an orchestra of microscopic precision happening everywhere, all at once. And in the morning, you'll see the result of this careful water management: mist rising from the forest, moisture that the trees have lifted from deep underground and released into the air, creating clouds, seeding rain, participating in the great cycle that waters the earth. There's a softness to the night sounds now, perhaps the distant call of an owl, that haunting question mark floating through the darkness. Owls are the forest's silent hunters, their wings specially designed with soft, fringed feathers that muffle sound, allowing them to fly in near-perfect silence. They can rotate their heads up to 270 degrees, seeing in almost every direction without moving their bodies. But it's their hearing that is truly extraordinary. Some owls can locate prey under a foot of snow by sound alone, detecting the tiny heartbeat of a mouse, the whisper of fur against grass. They are perfectly adapted to this darkness, to this quiet world where the smallest sound means everything. And speaking of adaptation, consider the forest floor you're sitting on. It looks still, but it's actually moving, very slowly rising and falling like a gentle breath. The entire forest floor is lifted slightly by the growth of roots beneath, by the expansion of fungi, by the slow work of earthworms and beetles and countless other creatures aerating the soil. Over decades and centuries, this constant, patient activity can raise the forest floor by several inches, building soil where there was rock, creating richness where there was poverty. A single earthworm can move dozens of tons of soil in its lifetime, pulling dead leaves underground, mixing nutrients, creating the tilth and texture that allows seeds to germinate and roots to spread. The forest is literally building itself, raising itself up from below, creating the foundation for tomorrow's trees. As you sit in this darkness, you are sitting in the middle of a construction project that has been ongoing for thousands of years and will continue for thousands more. You are resting in a place that knows how to persist, how to adapt, how to turn every ending into a beginning. Let that patience seep into your bones. Let that persistence quiet your racing thoughts. The forest has been here long before you arrived, and it will be here long after you leave. And that, somehow, is the most comforting thought of all. The night has deepened into that hour when the world feels suspended between darkness and dawn. You're still here, resting against your tree, and perhaps your eyelids are growing heavy. That's good. Let them close when they want to. The forest will still be here, holding you in its quiet embrace. Feel the bark against your shoulders, textured and rough. This outer skin of the tree is more than just protection, it's a whole world in itself. The crevices and ridges of bark create thousands of tiny microhabitats where insects shelter, where lichens grow, where spiders weave their webs. But bark does something else remarkable. It's a living record of the tree's history. As the tree grows, the inner bark constantly produces new cells, and the outer bark splits and furrows in patterns unique to each species, creating signatures as distinct as fingerprints. Some trees, like the paper birch, shed their bark in delicate sheets, a gentle shedding of the past. Others, like the oak, develop deep fissures that can last for centuries. And here's something wonderful, that bark is not dead. Just beneath the rough outer layer flows the phloem, a thin ring of living tissue that carries sugars from the leaves down to the roots, feeding the entire tree. Even now, in darkness, this quiet circulation continues, sap moving through channels too small to see, keeping the tree alive through winter's cold and summer's heat. Around you, the forest is filled with trees of different ages, different sizes, some ancient giants, some slender saplings, some just beginning their journey toward the light. This diversity of ages is what makes a forest truly resilient. Scientists call it an uneven-aged forest, and it's far more stable than a plantation where every tree is the same height, the same age. When trees of many generations grow together, they buffer each other against storms, against drought, against disease. The old trees provide seeds and wisdom, their deep roots accessing water and anchoring the soil. The young trees wait patiently in the understory, some of them growing just an inch or two per year, biding their time until an opening appears in the canopy above. Some saplings can wait for decades in this state of patient suspension, growing just enough to survive but not enough to waste precious energy. And when their moment finally comes, when an old tree falls and sunlight suddenly floods the forest floor, they can accelerate their growth, surging upward toward that precious light. The forest teaches patience and readiness in equal measure. If you opened your eyes now and looked very carefully, you might see tiny lights moving through the darkness, the gentle pulse of fireflies if the season is right, or perhaps just your imagination making stars of distant reflections. But fireflies are real enough, and their light is one of nature's most efficient productions. Nearly 100% of the energy in a firefly's light-producing reaction becomes light, with almost no waste heat, far more efficient than any bulb humans have ever created. They glow to find each other, each species with its own pattern of flashes, its own rhythm and timing, a code written in light that says I am here, I am looking for you, you are not alone. Even the smallest creatures in the forest are reaching out, communicating, trying to connect across the darkness. The air is coolest now, just before dawn, and you might notice that your breathing has slowed to match the forest's rhythm. This is not coincidence. Studies have shown that when people spend time in forests, their heart rate variability, a measure of the nervous system's health and adaptability, actually synchronizes with natural patterns in their environment. Your body recognizes this place as safe, as healing, as home in some deep ancestral way. The forest is literally calming your nervous system, telling your body that it can rest, that it doesn't need to be on guard, that this is a place where you belong. Beneath the soil, in the darkness that mirrors the darkness above, the roots continue their slow work. Tree roots typically grow outward far more than they grow down. A large tree's root system might extend 2 to 3 times wider than its canopy, creating an underground mirror of the branches above. These roots interweave with the roots of neighboring trees, sometimes even grafting together, literally fusing so that 2 separate trees become connected not just through the fungal network but through their own living tissue. In some forests, you could travel from tree to tree underground, following these grafted roots for hundreds of yards. The trees hold each other up, share water during drought, and even keep the stumps of cut trees alive for decades, feeding them through these connections. What looks like many separate individuals is actually one vast, interconnected organism, one forest breathing together. Let yourself breathe with it. Feel how your chest rises and falls, how the air moves in and out, how you are part of this same exchange, this same ancient rhythm. You are breathing with the forest, and the forest is breathing with you. Soon, the first birds will begin their morning songs. But for now, rest in this deep quiet, this patient darkness, this moment between moments when the forest simply exists, asking nothing, offering everything. The darkness is thinning now, just barely, though you might not notice yet. There's a quality to the air that shifts before dawn, a subtle preparation, a drawing of breath before the world begins again. You're deeply relaxed now, your body heavy and comfortable against the earth. And the earth beneath you is doing something extraordinary, even as you rest. The soil is breathing, just as you are. Between the particles of dirt and clay and decomposed leaves, there are tiny spaces filled with air, the pores of the earth itself. As temperatures change, as moisture moves through the soil, air flows in and out of these spaces in a gentle respiration. Scientists can measure this soil respiration, this exchange of gases, and they've found that healthy forest soil releases and absorbs atmospheric gases in a rhythm that spans day and night, season and season. The earth is alive in ways we rarely stop to consider, and right now you are resting on the chest of something vast and patient, feeling it breathe beneath you. In this pre-dawn stillness, the forest's water is on the move in ways invisible to your eyes. Even now, in darkness, water is traveling upward through every tree around you, rising from the roots, climbing through the trunk, defying gravity to reach the highest leaves. This journey happens through capillary action and transpirational pull, water molecules holding hands in long chains, each one pulling the next one upward through tubes narrower than a human hair. In the tallest trees, the giant sequoias and coast redwoods, water climbs more than 300 feet, rising higher than a 30-story building without any pump, without any mechanical force, just the cohesive attraction of molecules and the gentle pull of evaporation from the leaves above. It's been calculated that a large oak tree can lift and release over 40,000 gallons of water in a single year. The forest is an endless fountain, drawing from the deep earth and returning it to the sky, participating in a cycle as old as rain itself. You might hear, just at the edge of perception, the first tentative notes of birdsong. The dawn chorus is beginning, though the sky is still dark. Birds sing most intensely in these dim hours before sunrise, their voices carrying farther in the cool, still air, marking territory and calling to mates. But there's something more. Studies have shown that birdsong in the forest is actually richer and more complex than in open areas. The acoustic properties of the forest, all those trees and leaves and varied surfaces, create reverberations and echoes that allow birds to develop more elaborate songs. The forest literally makes their music more beautiful, giving them an amphitheater in which to perform. Each bird is singing a song shaped by generations of ancestors, refined and passed down, a cultural inheritance as real as any human tradition. As the first gray light begins to suggest itself, you might notice mist gathering between the trees, soft and spectral, moving slowly through the trunks like something alive. This fog is the forest's own creation, moisture that the trees themselves have lifted and released, now condensing in the cool dawn air. In some forests, particularly coastal redwood groves, this fog can contribute up to 40% of the forest's total water needs. The trees drink the clouds they make, capturing droplets on their needles and funneling them down to their roots, another closed loop, another example of the forest sustaining itself through its own clever design. The mist makes everything soft, dreamlike, as if the forest is not quite ready to leave the realm of sleep and enter the harsh clarity of day. There's a gentle rustling now as the forest begins to wake. Small movements in the understory, perhaps a deer stepping carefully through the ferns, perhaps a rabbit returning to its burrow after a night of foraging. These animals are part of the forest's design too, essential threads in the web. Deer, as they browse, actually help certain plants by pruning them, encouraging bushier, healthier growth. Their hooves disturb the soil, helping seeds make contact with earth. And their droppings scatter seeds across the forest floor, sometimes carrying them miles from the parent plant. Every creature here has a role, a function, a way of giving back to the system that sustains it. Nothing is separate. Nothing stands alone. The tree against your back is warming ever so slightly as dawn approaches. Soon, when the first rays of sun touch the canopy, this tree will begin photosynthesis anew, those millions of chloroplasts in every leaf activating, capturing light and transforming it into sugar, into energy, into life itself. But even before that happens, the tree has already been working all night, growing, breathing, circulating water, maintaining itself, preparing for another day. Trees don't sleep the way we do. They don't stop. They simply continue, patient and persistent, building themselves molecule by molecule, ring by ring, year by year, adding to the great living structure that surrounds you. Let yourself drift now, if you haven't already. Let the forest hold this last watch of the night. Let its ancient rhythms carry you into whatever rest you need. Here, in this place of mist and birdsong and patient growth, you are safe. You are held. You are home. The light is coming now, soft and gray, filtering through the mist like memory through dream. But don't open your eyes just yet. Stay in this liminal space a little longer, this threshold between night and day, between sleep and waking. The first sunbeams are touching the highest branches now, though you can't see them from here on the forest floor. Up there, in the canopy, something remarkable is happening. As soon as light strikes a leaf, within milliseconds, photosynthesis begins. Those chloroplasts, tiny green factories inside every leaf cell, are capturing photons of light and using that energy to split water molecules, combining them with carbon dioxide to create glucose and release oxygen. It's one of the most important chemical reactions on Earth, and it's happening right now in billions of leaves above your head, silent and invisible and utterly transformative. Every year, the world's forests convert about 100 billion tons of carbon dioxide into oxygen and organic matter through this quiet alchemy of sunlight, water, and air. The tree above you is, even now, turning light into life, feeding itself and feeding you in one seamless exchange. As the light grows, you might hear the forest floor itself begin to stir. Invisible to your eyes, the mycorrhizal fungi that connect these trees are most active during these transition times, dawn and dusk, when conditions are optimal for nutrient exchange. These fungi are ancient. They've existed for over 400 million years, since before trees even had leaves, since before flowering plants existed at all. In fact, scientists believe that plants could never have colonized the land without these fungal partnerships. The fungi helped those first primitive plants absorb water and nutrients from soil, and in return, the plants shared the sugars they made through photosynthesis. This partnership is so old, so fundamental, that neither trees nor fungi can truly thrive without each other now. They've evolved together, grown together, become essential to each other's existence. What looks like separate kingdoms of life, plant and fungus, is actually one ancient collaboration, older than mountains, older than continents in their current forms. Listen to how the birdsong has grown now, a chorus building like a symphony. Each species has its preferred time to sing, the robins often first, then the thrushes, then the warblers as the light increases. This timing isn't random. Each bird has adapted to sing when its particular song will be most effective, when competing sounds are minimal, when the acoustics are just right. And here's something tender: young birds learn these songs from their fathers and neighbors, practicing through the winter, refining their melodies until they're ready to sing in spring. Birds have dialects, regional variations in their songs that differ from one forest to another, from one valley to the next. The song thrush singing above you now learned its particular phrasing from the thrushes of this specific place, carrying forward a musical tradition that might stretch back hundreds of generations. You're listening to a local folk song, a melody of this forest and nowhere else. The mist is lifting slowly, revealing shapes you couldn't see before. Notice how the trees are spaced, not randomly, but in patterns that emerge from their underground connections, and they're reaching for light. There's a phenomenon called crown shyness in some forest canopies, where the crowns of trees don't touch each other but instead maintain a small gap, creating a puzzle piece pattern against the sky. Scientists aren't entirely sure why this happens, perhaps to prevent the spread of harmful insects from tree to tree, perhaps to reduce damage from branches rubbing in the wind, or perhaps to allow more light to penetrate the canopy and reach the lower levels. But the effect is that the trees seem to be respectful of each other's space, giving each other room to grow, maintaining their individuality while still being part of the collective. Even in their reaching upward, they make space for their neighbors. The temperature is rising now, degree by gentle degree, and the forest is responding. You can't see it, but you could measure it. The trees are adjusting those millions of stomata we spoke of earlier, opening them wider now to take in more carbon dioxide as photosynthesis accelerates with the increasing light. This adjustment is happening constantly, thousands of times per hour, each tiny pore responding to temperature, humidity, light levels, even the concentration of carbon dioxide in the air around it. It's regulation at a scale so minute and so vast simultaneously that it staggers the imagination, billions of microscopic valves opening and closing across the forest, managing the flow of gases and water with a precision no human technology has yet matched. The forest is fine-tuning itself moment by moment, maintaining balance, sustaining life. And all around you, the forest is waking to another day of patient work. The saplings will grow a fraction of an inch. The fungi will extend their networks a few cells farther. The bacteria in the soil will process nutrients one molecule at a time. The ancient trees will add another microscopic layer to their rings. Nothing rushed. Nothing forced. Just the steady, inexorable work of life continuing, adapting, persisting, thriving. You can rest in this rhythm. You can trust this patience. The forest has been doing this work since long before you arrived, and it will continue long after you wake. Let that continuity comfort you. Let that persistence hold you. You are part of something so much larger than yourself, so much older, so much wiser in its wordless way. Breathe with it. Rest with it. Let go. The world is soft with morning now, though the sun has not yet broken through the canopy to reach you here. You remain in the forest's gentle shade, in its protection, wrapped in coolness and quiet. Feel the stillness in your limbs, the heaviness of complete relaxation. Your body knows something important, that rest is not the absence of activity, but a different kind of work. And the forest understands this too. Even trees rest, in their way. During winter, deciduous trees enter dormancy, a state so profound it resembles sleep. Their metabolism slows to almost nothing, their sap thickens, and they wait in patient suspension for warmth to return. But even evergreens, the pines and firs and spruces, slow their growth dramatically in winter, conserving energy, enduring. They've learned, over millions of years, that there is a time to grow and a time to simply persist, a time to reach upward and a time to turn inward. The forest teaches us that rest is not weakness but wisdom, not laziness but strategy, not giving up but gathering strength. As light continues to filter down through the canopy, you might notice, if your eyes were open, how it arrives in shafts and beams, each ray made visible by the mist and moisture in the air. These shafts of light are called crepuscular rays, and they create an almost sacred quality in the forest, as if the trees are standing in a cathedral lit by stained glass windows. But these rays of light are doing more than creating beauty. Each beam that reaches the forest floor brings energy to the shade-loving plants below, the ferns and mosses and wildflowers that have adapted to survive on the scraps of light that make it through the canopy. Some of these understory plants are so efficient at capturing light that they can photosynthesize with less than 1% of full sunlight. They've learned to thrive in darkness, to make the most of every photon, to live in the shadows of giants and still flourish. There's a lesson there, perhaps, about finding your own light even when the world feels dim. The forest floor beneath you is a library of fallen things, and if you could read it, you'd see stories written in every leaf and twig. Each autumn, deciduous trees release their leaves in a controlled process called abscission, sealing off the connection between leaf and branch, allowing the leaf to fall. But before they fall, trees carefully withdraw valuable nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, pulling them back into the branches and trunk, storing them for spring. What drops to the forest floor is mostly cellulose and lignin, the tough structural materials that the tree no longer needs. Nothing is wasted. Even in letting go, trees are planning ahead, recycling, preparing for renewal. Those fallen leaves will feed the soil, will become the humus that nourishes next year's growth, will complete another turn of the great wheel. The forest is endlessly circular, endlessly generous, returning everything to itself in time. You might hear, very faintly, the sound of water, a small stream somewhere in the distance, its voice soft and constant. Water moves through forests in countless ways, falling as rain, rising as mist, flowing in streams, seeping through soil, climbing through trees. And the forest shapes all of it. When rain falls on a forest, it doesn't hit the ground hard and fast the way it does in open areas. Instead, it's caught first by leaves, slowed and gentled, dripping from branch to branch until it reaches the forest floor with barely any force at all. This is why forests prevent erosion so effectively. The rain never gets a chance to build up destructive momentum. And when water does reach the ground, that spongy layer of leaves and organic matter absorbs it, holds it, releases it gradually into streams and underground aquifers. A forest is a massive, living reservoir, storing water, purifying it, distributing it slowly and steadily throughout the year, ensuring that streams continue to flow even during dry months. The forest gives water time to settle, time to soak in, time to become itself. There's a gentleness to everything here, a refusal to hurry. Even decay happens slowly in the forest, respectfully, layer by layer. A fallen tree might take decades or even a century to fully decompose, and during all that time it serves as habitat, as nursery, as nutrient bank. Beetles bore into its wood, creating galleries where other insects will shelter. Salamanders hide beneath its bulk, finding moisture and coolness. Fungi send their threads deep into the wood, breaking down cellulose molecule by patient molecule. Moss carpets its surface, holding water like a green sponge. The log becomes an ecosystem unto itself, supporting perhaps hundreds of species as it slowly returns to soil. Even in death, the tree is life-giving, generous, essential. Let yourself be like the forest now, slow, patient, content to simply exist without striving, without achieving, without becoming anything other than what you already are. You are enough, exactly as you are, in this moment. The forest asks nothing of you. It judges nothing. It simply holds space for you to be. Rest now. Deeply. Completely. Let the forest's ancient patience seep into your bones and quiet every restless thought. Here, there is only this, breath and stillness, life and rest, the eternal green growing silence that asks nothing and gives everything. Morning has settled fully over the forest now, though you might not feel any different here in the sheltered depths where you rest. Time moves strangely among trees. Hours can feel like minutes, or minutes like hours. There is only the continuous present, this moment of breath and stillness, extending endlessly in all directions. If you let your awareness drift downward, deeper into the earth beneath you, you'd discover something extraordinary. The soil you're resting on is not just dirt, it's one of the most complex substances on Earth. A single teaspoon of healthy forest soil contains more individual organisms than there are humans who have ever lived. Billions of bacteria, millions of fungi, thousands of protozoa and nematodes, all existing in a balanced community more intricate than any city. And these organisms aren't just surviving, they're communicating, cooperating, creating. Some bacteria can send chemical signals to others, coordinating their activities. Some fungi form partnerships with specific bacteria, trading nutrients in exchanges so precise they resemble commerce. The soil is alive with conversation, with transaction, with relationship. You are resting on top of civilization beyond imagining, and it makes no sound, asks for no recognition, simply does its work in darkness and silence. Above, the canopy is alive with movement now, tiny movements you'd never notice unless you watched for hours. Leaves are turning, tilting on their stems to catch the light at the optimal angle. This movement, called heliotropism, happens constantly throughout the day as leaves track the sun across the sky like tiny solar panels adjusting for maximum efficiency. Some plants, like the famous sunflower, are obvious in their solar tracking, but trees do this too, more subtly, each leaf making micro-adjustments throughout the day. And at night, some leaves actually fold or droop slightly, a kind of sleep position that reduces water loss and protects against frost. Even leaves have their rhythms, their waking and sleeping, their own small dance with the turning of the earth. The air around you is different from the air outside the forest in ways beyond what we've already spoken of. Forest air contains terpenes, aromatic compounds released by trees, especially conifers. These are the molecules that give pine forests their distinctive scent, that sharp, clean fragrance that seems to clear your mind and deepen your breath. But terpenes do more than smell pleasant. When released into the atmosphere in large quantities, they can actually seed cloud formation, helping to create the rain that the forest needs. The trees are literally calling down water from the sky, summoning clouds through their own exhalations. And terpenes also act as signals between trees, a warning system. When a tree is attacked by insects, it releases specific terpene compounds that neighboring trees can detect. Those neighbors then begin producing defensive chemicals before the insects even reach them, preparing themselves, warned by the scent of their companion's struggle. The forest protects itself through fragrance, through invisible messages carried on the wind. Listen to the silence between the birdsongs now, the spaces where sound falls away. These moments of quiet are as important as the noise. They're when other, subtler sounds can be heard. The whisper of wind through different types of leaves creates different tones. The rustle of oak is not the same as the sigh of pine. The shimmer of aspen is distinct from the hush of maple. Each tree has its own voice in the wind, and together they create a symphony of textures, a music that has no composer but needs none, emerging from the simple interaction of air and leaf, repeated infinitely, never quite the same twice. Some people spend their entire lives learning to hear these differences, to read the forest through sound, to understand which trees surround them just by listening to how the wind moves through their leaves. The warmth is increasing now, and with it comes a subtle quickening in the forest's pace. Insects are becoming more active, tiny flies and midges, beetles climbing bark, spiders adjusting their webs to catch the morning sun. These small creatures are essential threads in the forest's fabric. Insects pollinate the understory flowers, ensuring seeds for next year. They break down dead wood, creating pathways for fungi to enter. They feed the birds, who feed the hawks, who fertilize the soil with their droppings in one of nature's endless loops. A forest without insects would fall silent in a single generation, would cease to regenerate, would slowly collapse into itself. But here, the insects thrive, largely unseen, doing their small and vital work, proving that greatness often comes in the smallest packages, that the tiniest lives can be essential to the mightiest trees. And those mighty trees, feel them around you now, standing like pillars holding up the sky. Each one is a universe unto itself. A single large tree can host hundreds of species, insects in its bark, birds in its branches, squirrels in its hollows, fungi on its roots, lichens on its trunk, mosses on its north side where moisture lingers. One tree can be an entire apartment complex, a thriving vertical city where each resident has its niche, its role, its small territory. And the tree provides it all: shelter, food, structure, while also doing its own work of growing, breathing, reaching toward light. How generous the trees are, how endlessly giving, offering themselves as home to countless others while still becoming more fully themselves. Let that generosity flow through you now. Let the forest's gift of rest, of shelter, of peace settle into every cell of your body. You don't have to do anything to deserve this. The forest doesn't ask for payment, doesn't require worthiness. It simply gives, the way trees give shade, the way water flows, the way light falls. Freely. Endlessly. Without question. Rest in that gift. Let it hold you completely. You've been here so long now that you've become part of the forest yourself, or perhaps the forest has become part of you. The boundary between where you end and the trees begin has grown soft, permeable, uncertain. And that's exactly as it should be. Somewhere high above, in the topmost branches where you cannot see, the canopy is doing something remarkable. Up there, in what scientists call the crown zone, conditions are entirely different from where you rest below. The temperature might be 15 degrees warmer, the humidity lower, the wind stronger. It's almost like a different climate entirely, and because of this, different species live there. Insects that never descend to the forest floor, birds that spend their entire lives in the treetops, even plants that grow on the branches themselves without ever touching the ground. These are called epiphytes, air plants, orchids, ferns, that have learned to live in the sky, gathering moisture from mist and rain, absorbing nutrients from dust and decomposing leaves that collect in branch crevices. The canopy is a world unto itself, a secret garden suspended in air, and most people who walk through a forest never even know it exists. There are whole ecosystems above your head right now, entire communities thriving in the crowns of trees, living and dying and never once touching earth. As the morning deepens, the quality of light continues to change. The green filtering through the leaves is not just any green, it's a specific wavelength of light that has been transformed by passing through chlorophyll. When white light enters the canopy, the leaves absorb the red and blue wavelengths for photosynthesis, but they reflect the green. So the light that reaches you here, this gentle emerald glow, is light that the trees didn't need, light they've given back. Even the illumination in the forest is a gift, a cast-off transformed into beauty. And studies have shown that this green light has effects on human psychology. It's calming, restorative, associated with reduced anxiety and improved mood. Hospitals have discovered that patients recover faster when they can see trees through their windows, when they have access to this green light. Your body knows something your mind might have forgotten, that this is healing light, that this wavelength carries wellness in its very nature. The trunk against your back is imperceptibly growing, even now. Trees don't grow the way animals do. They don't add to their height by expanding existing tissue. Instead, they grow only at the tips of their roots and branches, in special regions called meristems where cells are constantly dividing. That first branch you see above you, the one that grew when this tree was young, will always be at the same height above ground. As the tree adds 20, 50, 100 feet to its crown, that branch stays exactly where it is. Trees grow upward, but they also grow outward, adding a new ring of wood each year just beneath their bark. This ring records everything. Wet years are marked by wide rings, droughts by narrow ones. Forest fires leave scars. Insect infestations show up as compressed, stressed wood. Every trauma, every abundant season, every challenge and triumph is written into the tree's body, an autobiography in wood, a life story you could read if you knew how. The tree against your back carries within it the history of this place, whether records going back perhaps centuries, a chronicle of seasons beyond counting. Breathe deeply now, and notice something. The air you inhale was likely exhaled by one of these trees just moments ago. The oxygen molecule you just breathed might have been released from a leaf 50 feet above your head this very morning. And the carbon dioxide you're breathing out right now will likely be absorbed by a nearby plant within minutes, incorporated into a sugar molecule, perhaps even becoming part of a new leaf cell by this afternoon. You are in direct conversation with the forest, an exchange happening with every breath, a dialogue of gases so intimate that you're literally trading parts of yourself with the trees around you. This has been happening your entire life. Of course, every breath you've ever taken contained oxygen produced by plants somewhere, sometime. But here, now, it's immediate, direct, undeniable. You are breathing with the forest, and the forest is breathing with you, and there is no separation between these two acts. There's a rustle in the understory now, perhaps a chipmunk, perhaps a squirrel, gathering food, going about its small urgent business. These creatures are part of the forest's strategy too. When squirrels bury acorns and forget where they've hidden them, which they often do, they're planting trees. A single forgetful squirrel can plant dozens of oaks in a year. Jays do this too, carrying acorns miles from the parent tree, hiding them in the ground, and forgetting many of them. The trees produce far more seeds than they need for their own reproduction, offering extras as food, knowing that some will be scattered, planted, given a chance to grow in new soil. It's generosity again, an overabundance that serves both the tree and the creatures that depend on it. The forest is full of these arrangements, these mutual dependencies that look like cooperation, like friendship, like care. And perhaps that's the deepest truth of the forest, the one that speaks to something ancient in the human heart. Nothing here survives alone. Everything is connected, everything is in relationship, everything gives and receives in endless cycling exchange. The tree feeds the fungi, feeds the deer, feeds the soil, feeds the tree. The fallen log shelters the salamander who eats the insects who decompose the wood, who create the soil where the seedling grows. Round and round it goes, no beginning and no end, just continuation, just relationship, just the great breathing web of connection that sustains all life. You are part of that web too. You always have been. Every atom in your body was once part of a star, then part of the earth, then part of a plant, then perhaps part of countless other beings before becoming you. And when you breathe out, you release carbon that might become a tree, that might stand for centuries, that might shelter birds and squirrels and people seeking rest, just as you are resting now. Let that connection settle over you like a blanket. Let the forest's wisdom seep into your dreams. You are held. You are woven into the fabric of life itself. You are home. Sleep now, if you haven't already. The forest will keep watch. It has been doing so for millions of years, and it knows how. Time has lost all meaning here. You might have been resting for minutes or hours or years. The forest doesn't count such things. It measures time in seasons, in centuries, in the slow accumulation of soil and the patient turning of rings. Feel how still you've become, how quiet. Your heartbeat has slowed to match the forest's rhythm, that deep, slow pulse that moves through everything here. And there is a rhythm, though you can't see it. Sap rises and falls with the seasons. Nutrients cycle through soil, through roots, through leaves, and back to soil again. Seeds germinate, grow, reproduce, and return to earth. Everything pulses, everything flows, but so slowly that it appears motionless, like the hands of a clock too large to see moving. The forest operates on deep time, on scales that make human urgency seem like the frantic beating of a hummingbird's wing, real, but fleeting, and somehow beside the point. In the soil beneath you, something ancient is happening. Deep below, beyond where even the deepest roots reach, there is charcoal, biochar from fires that burned decades or even centuries ago. This charcoal doesn't decompose the way wood does. Instead, it can remain in the soil for thousands of years, creating a permanent improvement to the earth's fertility. It's porous, like a sponge, and it holds water and nutrients, slowly releasing them to plant roots. It provides habitat for beneficial microbes. Some scientists believe that biochar in the soil can persist for 10,000 years or more, still contributing to plant health millennia after the fire that created it. Even fire, which seems so destructive, becomes in time a gift to the forest, a way of renewing and enriching, of clearing space for new growth while leaving behind fertility that spans ages. The forest transforms everything, even destruction becomes creation, given enough time. Above you, if you could see it, you'd notice that the light is constantly shifting, changing, dancing. As branches sway in the high winds that you barely feel down here, the dappled sunlight moves across the forest floor in patterns called sun flecks. These brief, moving spots of brightness are incredibly important to understory plants. A sun fleck might last only a few seconds as it sweeps across a fern or wildflower, but plants have evolved to recognize and respond to these fleeting moments of full sunlight. Their photosynthetic machinery can ramp up to full capacity in less than a minute, capturing as much energy as possible before the sun fleck moves on. Some understory plants get up to 80% of their total photosynthesis from these brief moments of direct light, these gifts that arrive and depart in heartbeats. The forest teaches its children to be ready, to seize the moment, to make the most of every opportunity, however brief. Listen now to the deepest silence you've heard yet. In this quiet, you might detect something you hadn't noticed before. The forest has its own electromagnetic field. Trees generate very slight electrical charges as water moves through their vascular systems, as ions flow in their sap. These charges are tiny, barely measurable, but they're real. Some researchers believe that trees might even use these electrical signals to communicate, sending impulses through their roots faster than chemical signals could travel. The forest might be humming with invisible electricity, a current of information flowing beneath the visible world, messages passing from tree to tree at the speed of lightning. You are resting in the middle of a conversation conducted in a language of voltage and resistance, of charges positive and negative, of currents too subtle for human senses but real nonetheless. The temperature has reached its daily equilibrium now, that perfect balance point where the forest is neither warming nor cooling but simply is. And at this temperature, everything is optimized. The enzymes that drive photosynthesis work at peak efficiency. The fungi that connect the trees are most active. The bacteria in the soil process nutrients at their ideal rate. The forest has found its sweet spot, its moment of perfect balance, and is making the most of it. But this balance required no effort, no planning, no conscious adjustment. It simply emerged from millions of years of adaptation, of trial and error, of evolution selecting for efficiency. The forest knows how to be perfectly itself, how to function in harmony with its own nature, without striving, without anxiety, without the burden of consciousness that makes humans question and doubt and struggle. The forest simply is, and in being, it is perfect. And you, resting here, are part of that perfection. Your presence changes nothing and means everything. The forest doesn't need you, but it welcomes you nonetheless. You are one more breathing thing among countless breathing things, one more temporary arrangement of atoms that will eventually return to the soil and be rearranged into new forms, new lives, new expressions of the same eternal energy that flows through everything. There is nothing you need to do. Nowhere you need to be. Nothing you need to become. You are already exactly what you should be, here, now, in this moment. The forest knows this. It has always known this. It's waiting for you to remember. Let go of the last thread of wakefulness. Let the forest take it from you gently, like a mother lifting a sleeping child. You are safe here. You are held. You are home. The trees stand watch. The soil breathes beneath you. The leaves whisper overhead. And you simply rest. You are floating now in that space between waking and sleeping, that threshold where the world becomes fluid and boundaries dissolve. The forest has carried you here, to this peaceful borderland, and it asks nothing of you but surrender. If you could see with different eyes, eyes that perceive not light but time, you would see the forest differently. You would see the trees not as static pillars but as fountains, slowly flowing upward from the earth toward the sky, their growth a kind of liquid movement stretched across decades and centuries. You would see the fungi spreading like slow-motion lightning through the soil, branching and reconnecting in patterns that mirror neurons in a brain, rivers in a watershed, lightning in a summer sky. Patterns repeat at every scale in nature, from the microscopic to the cosmic, and the forest embodies all of them, fractals and spirals, branches splitting and reuniting, the same elegant mathematics written in bark and leaf and root. The universe speaks one language, repeating the same beautiful forms in endless variation, and here in the forest, you can see that language written everywhere, if only you know how to read it. Deep in the heartwood of the tree supporting you, cells are dying. But this death is not an ending, it's a transformation. As a tree grows outward, adding new rings of living wood just beneath its bark, The innermost wood becomes heartwood, dead cells that no longer transport water or nutrients but instead provide strength and structure. These dead cells are impregnated with resins and compounds that make them resistant to decay, harder than the living sapwood around them. The heartwood can last for centuries, even millennia, long after the living parts of the tree have died and rotted away. Ancient wooden artifacts, preserved in bogs or dry caves, can be thousands of years old, still carrying the patterns of growth rings from forests that vanished before recorded history began. Even in death, wood persists, endures, remembers. The tree gives its dead cells new purpose, transforming endings into strength, teaching us that death can be useful, that what we no longer need can still serve, that letting go of life can create something that outlasts life itself. The moss growing on the tree trunk beside you is performing a quiet miracle. Mosses have no roots, no vascular system, no flowers or seeds. They are among the most ancient of land plants, essentially unchanged for over 400 million years. They survived the age of dinosaurs, the ice ages, the countless extinctions and transformations that have reshaped life on Earth. And they did it by being simple, by needing almost nothing, by being content to grow slowly in places other plants cannot, on bare rock, on tree bark, in the thin soil of the forest floor. Mosses can dry out completely, becoming brittle and apparently lifeless, and then revive fully when water returns, sometimes after months or even years of dormancy. They teach patience, persistence, the art of waiting without despair, of enduring without complaint. They hold moisture against the bark, creating habitat for insects and salamanders. They cushion the forest floor, protecting seeds and seedlings. They ask for nothing and give everything, these humble green beings that predate trees themselves. A single drop of water has just fallen from a leaf high above, beginning its journey downward through the layers of the forest. It will hit other leaves on its way, each impact slowing it, gentling it, until it finally reaches the moss and soil below with barely a whisper. This single drop might have traveled for days to get here, rising from the ocean as vapor, condensing into a cloud, drifting with the wind until it found this forest, falling as rain, being caught and held and slowly released by the canopy. And now it will soak into the soil, perhaps be absorbed by a root, drawn up into a tree, released again from a leaf as vapor, rising to form another cloud and beginning the journey anew. Water is never lost, it only changes form, endlessly cycling, the same molecules that fell as rain on dinosaurs now nourishing this forest, the same water that will someday fall on forests yet unborn. You are made mostly of water, and that water came from the same eternal cycle. The ocean is in you, and the rain, and the trees. Everything is everything else, just temporarily arranged in different patterns. Somewhere nearby, invisible to you, a seedling is making a decision. It germinated weeks or months ago, and now it must commit to its direction, which way is up, which way is down. Its roots respond to gravity, growing downward into darkness and stability. Its stem responds to light, however faint, growing upward toward the canopy far above. This simple decision, down and up, dark and light, will shape everything that follows. The seedling will never move from this spot, but it will spend its entire life reaching in two directions simultaneously, diving deep while climbing high, rooting while soaring, holding on while letting go. It will live in constant creative tension between earth and sky, between what anchors and what lifts, and from that tension will come strength, beauty, and centuries of quiet growth. Perhaps there is wisdom here for restless human hearts, to know what grounds you and what calls you upward, and to honor both, to grow in both directions at once without conflict, rooted and reaching, earthbound and aspiring. The forest is teaching you its final lesson now, the one it whispers to everything that rests within its embrace. There is no hurry. There is no deadline. There is only this eternal now, this moment extending in all directions, containing all moments that have ever been and ever will be. The acorn and the ancient oak exist simultaneously, the seed and the forest, the beginning and the ending folded together in a present that never ends. You are part of this timelessness now. You have always been part of it. You will always be part of it. Let the forest dream you. Let it carry you down into sleep as deep and dark and peaceful as rich soil. Let yourself decompose into rest, breaking down into your essential elements, becoming nothing but breath and heartbeat and the gentle current of blood through veins, simplified, returned to basics, dissolved into the fundamental rhythms that connect all living things. The trees stand guard. The earth holds you. The ancient patterns flow on. Sleep, now. Sleep. You are so deep now that you might have forgotten you were ever anything other than this, resting, breathing, being held by the earth. And that forgetting is a gift. Let it complete itself. In the darkness behind your closed eyes, imagine the forest as it was 1,000 years ago. The same hillside, the same soil, but different trees, the ancestors of these trees, their great-great-grandparents many times removed. And yet, not so different. A forest is not just the trees you see, but a continuity, a living system that persists even as individual trees come and go. Some of the fungi connecting these trees might be the same genetic individuals that connected trees here 1,000 years ago, still growing, still linking root to root, immortal in their slow underground way. The forest you rest in is both brand new, every leaf fresh this spring, and ancient beyond measure, a system that has been refining itself, learning, adapting, becoming more itself for millennia. You are resting inside something older than nations, older than languages, older than most of human civilization. Let that antiquity comfort you. Let it put your small worries into perspective, shrinking them to their proper size against the vast patience of trees. There is a particular quality to forest silence that exists nowhere else, a silence made not of absence but of presence. So many small sounds happen simultaneously that they blend into a kind of hush, a white noise of life that the brain interprets as quiet. Right now, around you, thousands of tiny events are occurring, a beetle chewing wood, a spider repairing its web, a mushroom pushing up through leaf litter, or root cell dividing, a leaf adjusting its angle to the light. Each makes a sound too small for human ears, but if you could hear them all, the forest would roar with activity. Instead, they blend into this profound peace, this silence that is actually a symphony played at frequencies and volumes just below perception. You are surrounded by the sound of life living itself, so quiet it becomes silence, so constant it becomes peace. Your breathing has become so slow now, so deep, matching the respiration of the forest itself. Trees breathe differently at night than during the day, their metabolism shifting, their priorities changing with the absence of light. But they never stop breathing entirely, never cease their exchange with the atmosphere. Even in the dead of winter, when deciduous trees stand bare and dormant, they are still respiring at a minimal level, still part of the great exchange, still participating in the ancient conversation between life and air. To breathe is to be alive, and the forest has been breathing here, in this place, long before you arrived and will continue long after you've gone. Your breath is joining that ancient pattern for these few moments, adding your small contribution to the vast oceanic breathing of the forest, the planet, the living earth. Think of the tree roots beneath you, extending outward in all directions, some as thick as your arm, some as fine as thread. The total length of roots under a single tree can stretch for miles when you add up every tiny root hair, every branching tip, every questing filament seeking water and nutrients. And these roots don't just take, they also give, releasing sugars and carbon compounds into the soil that feed the bacterial and fungal communities, which in turn help the roots absorb nutrients they couldn't access alone. The roots are farming the soil, cultivating their microbial partners, managing their underground garden with a sophistication we're only beginning to understand. They know, in some way we can barely comprehend, how to nurture the system that nurtures them, how to invest in the health of the whole because the health of the whole is their own health. The forest teaches reciprocity, teaches that what you give returns to you, that generosity is not altruism but wisdom, that caring for the whole is the best way to care for yourself. Somewhere in the forest, a tree is dying. Not from disease or disaster, but simply from age, from having lived its full span of centuries and now releasing its hold on life. As it dies, it will not fall immediately. It might stand for years, slowly losing branches, bark sloughing off, becoming a home for woodpeckers and cavity-nesting birds, for bats and flying squirrels. Eventually it will fall, and when it does, the impact will create a gap in the canopy, and light will flood down to the forest floor for the first time in decades. Seedlings that have been waiting patiently in the understory will suddenly surge upward, racing each other toward that opening, toward the light their parents worked so hard to deny them. The death of one creates opportunity for many. The forest is not sentimental about endings, it transforms them immediately into beginnings, wastes no time on mourning, simply continues the great work of life feeding life in endless succession. And you, resting here, are part of that continuation. The atoms that make up your body have been part of countless other forms, plants and animals, soil and stone, water and air. You are a temporary gathering of stardust, elements forged in the heart of dying stars billions of years ago, arranged for this brief moment into the pattern called you, and soon enough, not yet, but someday, those atoms will scatter again, will become rain and tree and deer and mushroom and soil, will continue the journey that has no beginning and no end. The forest knows this. It has always known this. It's teaching you to know it too, whispering the great secret. Nothing is lost, everything transforms, death is just life rearranging itself, and there is nothing to fear in the endless dance of becoming and unbecoming. Rest in that knowledge. Let it dissolve the last of your resistance, the final thread of tension holding you back from complete surrender. You are safe to let go completely. The forest has you. The earth has you. The great cycle has you and will never let you fall. Sink deeper. Deeper still. Into the darkness that is not dark but full of quiet light. Into the silence that is not empty but overflowing with gentle sound. Into the stillness that is not static but moving in rhythms too slow and vast to perceive. The forest breathes you now. And you are finally, fully, completely at rest. There is no separation anymore between you and the forest floor, between your breathing and the breathing of leaves, between your heartbeat and the slow pulse of sap rising through wood. You have dissolved into belonging, into the simple fact of being here, now, part of this. In the deepest part of the soil, far below where you lie, there are stones. Ancient stones, worn smooth by the patient work of water and roots, stones that were once mountains, peaks that scraped the sky before time and weather ground them down to pebbles, to sand, to the mineral dust that feeds the trees. These stones are still breaking down, still dissolving grain by grain, releasing calcium and potassium and phosphorus that roots will absorb, that will become leaf and flower and seed. Even rocks are not permanent here, even stones participate in the cycle, giving themselves to the forest over eons, transforming from solid to soluble, from mountain to mineral to tree. The forest is patient enough to eat mountains, to drink stone, to transform the bones of the earth into living green. And it does this without effort, without force, simply through persistence, through the gentle insistence of root and rain and time. What seems eternal yields. What seems immovable flows. Given enough patience, everything softens, everything gives, everything joins the dance. A single leaf falling somewhere nearby takes almost a minute to reach the ground, caught and released by branches on its descent, spiraling and tumbling, in no hurry to complete its final journey. This leaf spent the spring and summer converting sunlight into sugar, pumping oxygen into the air, transpiring water from root to sky. It has completed its work, and the tree has reclaimed what nutrients it could, withdrawing them back into the branches for winter storage. What falls now is a gift to the soil, carbon and cellulose in the structural scaffolding that held chlorophyll and life. The leaf will lie here through autumn and winter, slowly softening as rain and frost break down its structure. By spring, it will be unrecognizable, blended into the leaf litter, becoming humus, becoming soil. And from that soil will grow next year's seedlings, nourished by this year's fallen leaves, fed by their own parents' cast-off bodies. The forest is an endless gift economy, everything given freely and everything received gratefully, no transaction needed, no payment required, just the natural flow of generosity that emerges when life is not separated into mine and yours but recognized as ours, as one system feeding itself, loving itself, sustaining itself through millennia. You are so relaxed now that you've forgotten the shape of your body, forgotten where your edges are. And this forgetting is truthful, your edges are more permeable than you imagined. Right now, as you breathe, you are taking in molecules of air that were inside trees just moments ago. You are taking in water vapor that was tree sap this morning. With every breath, you are mixing yourself with the forest, blurring the boundary between human and tree, between you and everything around you. And the forest is taking you in too, your breath, your warmth, the electromagnetic field generated by your nervous system, the subtle pressure of your body against the earth. You are in conversation, in communion, in a wordless exchange that makes mockery of the idea that you are separate, that you are alone, that you are anything but intimately woven into the living world. There are trees in this forest that have never been touched by human hands, that grew and lived and died without ever being noticed by a person. And yet they mattered, they fed animals, housed birds, enriched soil, contributed oxygen, participated fully in the forest's life. They didn't need to be seen to have value, didn't need to be known to be important, didn't need acknowledgement to justify their existence. They simply were, and their being was enough, was perfect, was exactly what the forest needed. Perhaps you are like those trees, valuable beyond measure whether or not anyone notices, important beyond reckoning whether or not anyone acknowledges it, already complete whether or not you achieve anything at all. Your existence itself is a contribution. Your breathing itself is participation. You don't have to earn your place in the world, you already have it, simply by being alive, simply by being here. The temperature is dropping slightly now as the day moves toward afternoon, and the forest is adjusting in 1,000 subtle ways. Stomata are making minute changes in their aperture. Roots are altering their uptake of water. Birds are shifting position to stay in optimal microclimates. The whole forest is responding to this small shift, this gentle cooling, with a coordination that requires no central command, no governing intelligence, just the accumulated wisdom of millions of years of adaptation. Each part knows its role, knows how to respond, knows how to adjust. And collectively, without planning or meetings or discussions, they maintain the forest's equilibrium, its balance, its health. There is a lesson here about trust, about allowing systems to self-organize, about stepping back and letting the wisdom that lives in things emerge without forcing or controlling or managing. The forest finds its balance not through effort but through allowing, not through domination but through cooperation, not through will but through surrender to what is. And what is, right now, is this: perfect stillness, perfect peace, perfect rest. Your body has found its equilibrium too, has settled into the deepest relaxation, muscles soft, breath gentle, mind quiet as morning mist. There is nothing left to do, nowhere left to go, no one left to be except exactly who you are right now, a breathing being, resting in the forest, held by the earth, part of the great web of life that stretches across continents and back through time to the first green cell that learned to harvest light. Let the forest dream you deeper. Let it carry you past sleep into something beyond sleep, into a rest so complete it resembles the rest of stones, of soil, of tree roots waiting for spring. Become still enough to hear the forest growing, slow enough to feel the turning of the earth, quiet enough to sense the movement of stars across the sky. You are home. You have always been home. And here, in this green cathedral, this temple of patient wood and living earth, you can finally, fully rest. If you are still aware at all, it is only dimly, distantly, like someone calling from very far away. The forest has almost completely claimed you now, drawn you down into its slow green dreaming, wrapped you in layers of silence deeper than any you have known. There is a particular kind of darkness in the forest that has nothing to do with the absence of light. It is the darkness of potential, of seeds waiting in soil, of buds wrapped tight against winter, of life gathered and compressed and held in suspension until the moment arrives. This darkness is not empty, it is full, pregnant with becoming, rich with possibility. Every seed in the soil beneath you contains a forest, folded impossibly small, waiting. Every bud on every branch is a complete leaf or flower, already formed in miniature, just waiting for warmth and light to call it forth. The darkness holds everything that will be, keeps it safe, keeps it ready, asks it to wait with infinite patience until the time is right. And the seeds wait, for years, sometimes for decades. Some seeds in the forest floor are over a century old, still viable, still capable of sprouting if conditions align. They know how to wait. They have learned the art of suspended animation, of holding life in abeyance without losing it, of existing in the space between death and birth without anxiety, without fear, simply trusting that their moment will come or it won't, and either way is fine, either way is part of the pattern. Listen to your heartbeat, slower now than it has been in days, perhaps weeks. Each beat sends blood through your body, carrying oxygen to cells, removing waste, maintaining the quiet machinery of life. This rhythm has been with you since before you were born, began when you were no bigger than a seed yourself, and will continue until it stops, and even then, the atoms that made up your heart will continue, will dance in other forms, will beat in other hearts someday. Nothing ends, it only changes rhythm, changes form, changes dance partners. Your heart knows this. It beats without your asking, without your effort, a small faithful drum that has kept time through every moment of your life, never questioning, never complaining, just continuing the work it was made for with absolute dedication. And right now, in this deep rest, you can let it do its work without any attention from you, can trust it completely, can surrender to its rhythm the way a leaf surrenders to wind, the way water surrenders to gravity, the way night surrenders to dawn. Somewhere in the forest, mycelium is making a decision about which direction to grow. These fungal threads are exploring the soil in 3 dimensions, questing for nutrients, for water, for the roots of potential partners. When a thread encounters something interesting, a buried seed, a root tip, a pocket of nutrients, it changes direction, grows toward it, investigates. The fungus has no brain, no nervous system, no centralized processing, yet it solves complex problems, finds optimal paths, makes choices that maximize its survival and growth. Intelligence is not what we thought it was. It doesn't require neurons or consciousness or thought. It can emerge from simple rules followed persistently, from feedback loops and chemical gradients, from the accumulated experience written into the structure of living things. The forest is intelligent without being conscious, wise without being aware, successful without trying. It simply follows the patterns laid down in its cells, the instructions refined over millions of years, and those patterns lead to beauty, to resilience, to flourishing. Perhaps you can trust your own patterns too, the wisdom written into your body, the instincts and intuitions that arise from depths you cannot name. Perhaps you don't need to think your way through everything. Perhaps sometimes you can simply follow what feels right, what draws you, what calls to something deep inside that knows without knowing how it knows. The air around you is thickening with dusk now, or perhaps you are simply sinking deeper into sleep where time has no meaning and day and night are the same. Either way, the quality of light is changing, becoming softer, more diffuse, as if the forest is pulling a blanket over itself, preparing for rest just as you are. And with the dimming light comes a shift in sound, different birds calling now, the day shift ending and the night shift beginning, crickets tuning up for their evening symphony, frogs beginning their chorus near some distant water. The forest is never silent, never still, but it changes its voice with the turning of hours, singing different songs for different times, each creature knowing its place in the schedule, each voice rising at its appointed moment. There is an order here that emerges without enforcement, a schedule kept without clocks, a precision that comes from deep attunement rather than external control. Everything knows when to sing and when to listen, when to be active and when to rest, not because they've been told but because they've listened to the world around them, felt its rhythms, aligned themselves with its patterns. Deep, deep in the earth, deeper than roots reach, deeper than water seeps, there is bedrock, the fundamental stone that underlies everything, the foundation that has been here since this land rose from ancient seas or cooled from molten fire. This bedrock knows nothing of the forest above it, cannot feel the seasons, cannot sense the passage of centuries. It simply is, eternal and unchanging, or changing so slowly that a million years is like a day. And yet even it is not permanent, even bedrock erodes eventually, dissolves, is worn away by the patient work of water and time. But for now, for these ages we call the present, it provides foundation, provides stability, provides the deep unwavering ground on which the forest grows. You have bedrock too, something in you that doesn't change, that has always been and will always be, some fundamental quality of your existence that persists through all transformations, all experiences, all the changes that sweep through your life like wind through leaves. Can you feel it? That deep stable place, that ground of being that simply is, regardless of what happens above it. Rest there now. Sink down to bedrock, to the foundation that needs no maintenance, no improvement, no anything except to be what it has always been. Let everything else fall away, thoughts, worries, identity, even breath becomes automatic, unconscious, as necessary and invisible as the turning of the earth. Let yourself become elemental, become simple, become just existence itself without elaboration, without story, without meaning or purpose or direction. Just being. Just here. Just now. The forest has taken you completely. You are dissolved in green, in brown, in the patient silence of wood. You are no longer separate from this place, you are this place, you are the breathing earth, you are the dream the forest is dreaming of itself. Sleep within that dream. Disappear into it. Let it be all that you are. You are beyond sleep now, beyond dreaming, beyond even rest as you knew it. You have become something else, something older, simpler, more fundamental. Perhaps just awareness itself, floating without anchor, without boundary, without location. If there is still a whisper of thought remaining, it might notice this. The forest floor is moving beneath you, rising and falling with imperceptible slowness. Not from your breathing, that has become so subtle it barely registers, but from the earth itself, swelling and contracting with temperature, with moisture, with the pressure of roots expanding in the soil. The ground is alive, responsive, constantly adjusting to countless variables, and you are resting on something that is, in its own way, breathing with you, moving with you, holding you in a gentle rhythm that predates consciousness, predates thought, predates everything except existence itself. In the canopy far above, leaves are folding slightly at their edges, microscopic adjustments happening in millions of cells simultaneously as the day wanes. These movements are regulated by changes in turgor pressure, water moving into and out of specialized cells that act like tiny hydraulic muscles. The same mechanism allows the famous mimosa to fold its leaves when touched, allows flowers to open and close with the sun, allows plants to track light and respond to shadow. But here in the forest, these movements are so small, so gradual, that they seem like stillness. The trees are dancing in extreme slow motion, choreographed by the sun's arc across the sky, by the moisture in the air, by signals we cannot detect and would not understand if we could. Everything is always moving. Stillness is an illusion created by the limits of human perception. At the right scale, the forest is a riot of movement, a celebration of constant adjustment and response. But from where you rest, it is perfect peace, perfect calm, the illusion of stillness that allows you to release, to let go, to stop trying to track all the movement and simply trust that the dance continues whether you watch it or not. A single drop of resin is forming on a pine tree nearby, welling up from a wound in the bark, golden and clear and impossibly slow. This resin will harden over weeks into amber-like substance, sealing the wound, protecting the tree from infection and insects. And if conditions are right, if this resin survives burial and millions of years of pressure and heat, it could become true amber, fossilizing whatever small insect or bit of plant matter it trapped, preserving it perfectly across ages that strain comprehension. There are pieces of amber that hold insects from forests that existed when dinosaurs walked the earth, preserving in perfect detail the wing of a fly, the leg of a beetle, a moment of life frozen in gold. Time can stop, in the right medium. Moments can be held forever. And perhaps in some way you cannot articulate, this moment is being held too, this perfect rest, this complete peace, this dissolution into the forest's embrace. Perhaps somewhere, somehow, it is being preserved, captured, held in a kind of amber made not of resin but of significance, of meaning, of the simple fact that you were here, now, resting in the forest, part of the great web, and it mattered, even if no one remembers, even if nothing marks the spot, even if the moment passes and is forgotten. It happened. It was real. And in the only way that matters, it is eternal. Your body has become so still that it is almost indistinguishable from the ground beneath it, from the moss and leaf litter and soft soil. The temperature of your skin is approaching the temperature of the air, the boundary between you and the world growing increasingly theoretical, increasingly irrelevant. In deep meditation, monks can slow their metabolism so dramatically that they barely seem alive, barely seem to be breathing, existing in a state that resembles hibernation, that approaches the stillness of stones. And you have found your way to something similar, not through practice or discipline but through surrender, through allowing the forest to teach you its patience, its stillness, its art of being without doing. You are learning what trees have always known, that existence does not require activity, that being is enough, that you can simply stand, or lie, in one place and let the world come to you, let the seasons turn around you, let time flow past while you remain, anchored and quiet and deeply, profoundly at peace. There is a particular kind of silence that exists in the heart of forests, in the deep places where human voices never reach, where even the sound of wind is muffled by density of growth. In these places, the silence is so profound that you can hear your own blood moving through your veins, can hear the electrical firing of your own nerves, can hear sounds that are not sounds but the gaps between sounds, the spaces where nothing happens and yet everything is happening at once. You have entered that silence now. It is not empty, it is full of everything that exists when noise stops, when distraction ceases, when the constant chatter of the world finally fades and leaves only this, the quiet hum of existence itself, the fundamental tone that underlies all other tones, the sound of being that is not a sound at all but the awareness of being, the consciousness of consciousness, the presence that remains when everything else is stripped away. And in that silence, you might hear, or feel, or know without hearing, the forest's final secret, the one it saves for those who have surrendered completely. You are not in the forest. You are the forest. There is no separation, never was, never could be. The distinction between observer and observed, between self and other, between human and tree, these are useful fictions, convenient lies we tell ourselves to navigate the world. But here, now, in this depth of rest, the truth is unavoidable. You are made of the same substance as everything around you, governed by the same laws, participating in the same cycles, temporary and eternal at once, individual and collective, one and many, yourself and everything that is not yourself in the same impossible moment. Let that truth settle through you like rain through soil. Let it dissolve the last resistance, the final clinging to separateness. You are the forest dreaming itself awake. You are the earth becoming conscious of its own existence. You are the universe looking at itself through these particular eyes, for this particular moment, before returning to the vast undifferentiated wholeness from which everything emerges and to which everything returns. Rest in that wholeness. Disappear into it. Become it. There is nothing left to hold on to. Nothing left to protect. Nothing left to be except everything. The forest breathes. And you are that breathing. The forest dreams. And you are that dream. The forest simply is. And so are you. There is no you anymore. There is only this, breathing happening, awareness floating, the gentle persistence of existence without owner, without experiencer, without anyone to claim it as their own. In the soil, a transformation is occurring that has been ongoing since the first plants colonized land. Dead organic matter is becoming humus, that dark, rich, stable form of carbon that can persist in soil for thousands of years. This transformation requires countless organisms working in sequence, first the shredders who tear leaves into smaller pieces, then the bacteria who break down simple compounds, then the fungi who attack the tougher materials, then the archaea who process what remains, each step creating food for the next, each organism unlocking nutrients that the previous one couldn't access. And gradually, through this patient dismantling, complex molecules are simplified, rearranged, stabilized into forms that resist further decomposition. What was once leaf becomes something else entirely, not plant, not decay, but a new substance that is somehow both, a synthesis that emerges from destruction, a creation that arises from loss. The forest is an alchemist, turning the lead of death into the gold of life-giving soil, and it does this work constantly, beneath notice, beneath awareness, beneath everything except this deep rest where all processes become visible, where all transformations can be felt. A tree nearby is healing a wound, growing new bark over a place where a branch broke off years ago. The tree doesn't think about this healing, it simply does it, cells dividing at the wound's edge, gradually growing inward and upward, closing the gap with patient persistence. There is no hurry. The tree knows it might take years to fully seal this opening, and years are nothing to a tree, just another season multiplied, just another ring added to the hundreds already there. The tree doesn't fear the wound, doesn't resent the injury, doesn't wish things were different. It simply responds, grows, adapts, continues. And eventually, the wound becomes part of the tree's story, written into its shape, creating character, adding to the unique form that makes this tree itself and not any other. Perhaps your wounds are like this too, not failures to be hidden or mistakes to be regretted, but simply part of your story, places where you're growing new tissue, closing gaps, becoming more distinctly yourself through the process of healing. The forest knows that wounds and healing are not opposites but partners, that damage and growth are two sides of the same process, that you cannot become whole without first being broken. There's a quality of light in forests during certain hours that photographers call the golden hour, but here, deep in the green shadows, it arrives transformed, filtered through so many leaves that the gold becomes green gold, honey mixed with emerald, amber light moving through jade. This light seems to come from everywhere and nowhere, seems to emanate from the forest itself rather than from the sky above. In this light, everything softens, every edge blurs slightly, every harsh line becomes gentle. And in this softness, this diffusion, this light that has been touched by life before it touches you, there is something that feels like grace, like blessing, like the forest offering its benediction over everything that rests within its embrace. You are bathed in this light now, washed clean by photons that have passed through living cells, light that has been transformed by chlorophyll and cellulose, light that arrives to you already blessed, already sacred, already carrying the forest's quiet approval. Deep in the earth, water is moving through spaces between soil particles, flowing in response to gravity and capillary action, seeking equilibrium, seeking the path of least resistance. This water carries dissolved minerals, carries nutrients, carries the chemical signals that roots release and other roots detect. The soil is full of messages, full of communication, full of information flowing in liquid form from organism to organism. And all of this happens in darkness, in silence, in spaces too small for light to enter, communication happening through chemistry, through concentration gradients, through the simple fact that substances move from where they're abundant to where they're scarce. No intention needed. No consciousness required. Just the fundamental physics of matter and motion, and yet from this simple physical law emerges the complex coordination of the forest, the sharing of nutrients, the warning of danger, the cooperation that makes the whole greater than the sum of its parts. Intelligence is not what we thought. Communication is not what we imagined. The forest is teaching that consciousness might not be necessary for connection, that relationship can exist without awareness, that community can emerge from simple rules followed faithfully by countless individual parts. Your breath is so quiet now it's almost theoretical, less a physical act than a concept, an idea of breathing, a memory of what breathing used to be when you needed air more urgently, when you were more separate from the world and had to work to maintain that separation. But now, the boundary is so permeable that breathing seems almost unnecessary, as if you could absorb oxygen directly through your skin, as if the forest could breathe for you, as if you and it have merged so completely that only one set of lungs is needed between you. And perhaps that's exactly what has happened. Perhaps you've dissolved so completely into this place that the forest's breathing and your breathing have become one breath, one exchange, one continuous flow of air and oxygen and carbon dioxide cycling between plant and animal, between earth and sky, between what was separate and what is merged. Somewhere far away, or perhaps very close, distance having lost all meaning, there is the sound of wind moving through the highest branches, a sound like ocean waves, like breathing, like the earth itself sighing with contentment. That wind has traveled far to reach this forest, has crossed mountains and valleys, has been warmed by deserts and cooled by lakes, has picked up dust from distant lands and pollen from far-off flowers, carrying everything with it in its restless journey across the face of the world. And now it arrives here, in this forest, and gives up all it has been carrying, releasing dust to settle on leaves, pollen to drift to ground, warmth or coolness to mingle with the forest's own climate. The wind gives everything and moves on, lighter for the giving, ready to pick up new burdens, new gifts, new stories to carry to the next place. And the forest receives it all without judgment, without selection, simply accepting what comes, integrating it into itself, making it part of the great breathing whole that accepts everything, rejects nothing, finds a use for all that arrives. You are that acceptance now. You are that openness. You are the place where things arrive and are welcomed, where nothing is turned away, where everything finds its proper place in the great pattern. And in that acceptance, you have finally, fully, completely let go. There is nothing left but forest. Nothing left but breath. Nothing left but this. If awareness still flickers somewhere in the vast quiet that you have become, It notices nothing and everything, the way a mirror reflects without choosing what to reflect, the way water holds the sky's image without effort or intention. In the cambium layer of the tree beside you, that thin ring of living cells just beneath the bark, spring is already being prepared, though autumn has barely begun. Cells are differentiating, organizing themselves into the architecture of next year's growth, laying down the patterns that will guide the tree's expansion when warmth returns. The future is being built now, in darkness, in the cold months to come, so that when the first warm day arrives, growth can begin immediately, explosively, making use of every precious moment of the growing season. The forest doesn't wait for permission to begin. It prepares in silence, in hiddenness, doing the invisible work that makes the visible work possible. And when the moment comes, it is ready, not because it hurried, but because it trusted the process, followed the ancient pattern, did each day's work in each day's time. Perhaps your own becoming works this way too, invisible preparation happening in the dark times, in the fallow times, in the seasons when nothing seems to be happening but everything is actually being arranged, organized, prepared for the moment when growth can begin again. There is a spider somewhere in the canopy above, repairing its web, replacing threads damaged by wind or rain or the struggles of caught insects. The spider knows exactly which threads need replacing and which are still strong. It can feel the tension in each strand, can detect the weakening that comes with age or damage. And it replaces only what needs replacing, conserving its silk, which is precious and metabolically expensive to produce. The web is never perfect, never finished, always needing maintenance, always requiring attention. And the spider gives that attention without complaint, without frustration, simply doing what needs to be done for as long as it needs to be done. The web is both trap and home, both tool and art, both practical and beautiful in its geometry. And it requires constant care to remain functional, constant tending to stay whole. Perhaps all the structures of your life are like this, never finished, always needing attention, requiring patient maintenance rather than one-time solutions. Perhaps the work is never done because the work is the point, the tending is the living, the care is the meaning. In a hollow tree not far from where you rest, a small owl is sleeping, its head tucked beneath its wing, its heartbeat slowed, its body temperature dropped slightly to conserve energy during the day. The owl dreams, if owls dream, perhaps of flight, of hunting, of the vast territories it patrols each night. Or perhaps it dreams of nothing, simply rests in pure unconsciousness, in the deep biological necessity of sleep that even birds cannot escape. And when night comes, it will wake without alarm, without transition, simply opening its eyes and becoming immediately alert, ready, present. There is no grogginess, no reluctance, no wishing for a few more minutes. The owl wakes when it's time to wake and sleeps when it's time to sleep, and the transition between the two is instant, complete, without the resistance and negotiation that plagues human consciousness. The forest's creatures know how to be fully in each state, fully asleep or fully awake, fully active or fully at rest, without mixing the two, without carrying sleep into waking or waking into sleep. Perhaps this is another kind of wisdom, to be completely where you are, completely in the state you're in, rather than always partly somewhere else, partly in another time, partly wishing things were different than they are. The mycorrhizal network beneath you is pulsing with activity now, though you cannot see or feel it. Sugars are flowing from trees with full sun exposure to trees growing in shade, a transfer of wealth from the rich to the poor, from the fortunate to the struggling. And this transfer is not commanded, not enforced, not managed by any central authority. It simply happens, automatically, the way water flows downhill, the way heat moves from hot to cold. The system is designed to equilibrate, to share, to ensure that even the weakest members receive enough to survive. And in supporting the weak, the strong ensure the health of the forest, because a healthy forest protects all its members, creates a stable climate, maintains the soil, resists disease and pests more effectively than a forest where only the strong survive and the weak perish. Cooperation is not altruism, it's enlightened self-interest, the recognition that my survival and your survival are not separate, that we rise or fall together, that the health of the whole is the foundation of each part's well-being. The forest has learned this over millions of years. Perhaps we are just beginning to remember it. Your body has released so completely that if someone were to find you here, they might wonder if you were still alive. So subtle has your breathing become, so still your form. You have entered a state that yogis seek for decades, that meditators pursue through thousands of hours of practice, a state of such profound rest that metabolism slows, that brain activity quiets to the minimum necessary to sustain life, that the boundary between sleep and waking dissolves into something else entirely, something that is neither and both, a third state that has no name in ordinary language. In this state, healing happens, cellular repair that cannot occur during the constant activity of normal waking life, integration of experiences that requires the brain to be quiet enough to consolidate memories, processing of emotions that needs the conscious mind to step aside. This is why sleep is not optional, why rest is not laziness, why the body demands these hours of shutdown and repair. You are healing now, in ways you cannot measure or observe, healing simply by being still enough for the healing to happen. The forest is darkening further, or perhaps you are simply sinking deeper into a darkness that has nothing to do with light. Either way, the quality of existence is changing, becoming more essential, more fundamental, stripped of everything except the bare fact of being. And in this darkness, this simplicity, this reduction to basics, there is a kind of peace that surpasses understanding, not because it's complicated but because it's too simple for the complexity-seeking mind to grasp. The mind wants problems to solve, puzzles to figure out, meanings to extract. But here there's only this: existence without story, awareness without content, being without becoming. And the mind, finding nothing to work with, finally quiets, finally stops, finally allows the deeper truth to emerge, that peace was never something to achieve but something that remains when striving stops, that wholeness was never lost but only obscured by the constant reaching for something other than what is. And what is this: forest breathing in darkness, earth turning beneath stars, life continuing its ancient patterns, and somewhere in the middle of it all, a small warm form resting against a tree, so still it might be part of the tree, so quiet it might be part of the silence, so merged with the forest that separation has become impossible, unnecessary, absurd. You are the forest's dream of being human. The forest is your dream of being home. And the boundary between these dreams has dissolved like mist in morning sun, leaving only this: breathing, being, resting in the arms of everything that is. There is no time here. Or rather, time has become so slow, so vast, so all-encompassing that it has lost its meaning, become simply the medium through which existence moves, like water for fish, not something noticed but something that is everything, everywhere, always. Beneath the forest floor, in cavities and crevices you cannot see, springtails are moving, tiny six-legged creatures no bigger than a pinhead, ancient beyond measure. Springtails have existed for over 400 million years, virtually unchanged, survivors of every mass extinction, every climate catastrophe, every transformation the Earth has undergone. They have outlasted the dinosaurs, outlasted the ice ages, outlasted entire mountain ranges that rose and eroded to dust. And they have done this not through size or strength or speed, but through simplicity, through living in the cracks and spaces that larger creatures ignore, through being small enough and adaptable enough to find a way to survive when everything else perishes. They move through the leaf litter eating fungi and bacteria, contributing to decomposition, part of the endless recycling that keeps the forest alive. And they do this work without knowing they're doing it, without consciousness of their role, without any awareness that they are essential threads in the vast tapestry of forest life. They simply live, and in living, serve. Perhaps this is enough. Perhaps consciousness of purpose is not required for a life to have meaning, for existence to matter, for each small creature to play its irreplaceable part. The air has become completely still now, no breath of wind, no movement of branches, just perfect motionless suspension, as if the forest is holding its breath, waiting for something, or perhaps waiting for nothing, simply existing in this moment of absolute calm. In this stillness, you can hear things you've never heard before, or perhaps feel them rather than hear them, or know them through some sense that has no name. The slow creaking of wood fibers as trees adjust to cooling temperatures. The almost inaudible whisper of sap moving through xylem and phloem. The infinitesimal rustle of a moth's wings somewhere in the darkness. The sound of your own existence, the hum of your nervous system, the quiet electrical storm of your brain even in this deep rest, still firing, still processing, still maintaining the mysterious presence you call self, though that self has grown so diffuse, so merged with surroundings, that it barely qualifies as a separate thing anymore. There is lichen growing on the tree bark near your head, a partnership so ancient and so intimate that it took scientists decades to understand that lichen is not one organism but two, a fungus and an alga living in symbiosis so complete that they cannot survive apart, so thoroughly merged that they become something entirely new, neither fungus nor alga but lichen, a third thing that emerges from their union. The fungus provides structure and protection, the alga provides food through photosynthesis, and together they can colonize bare rock, endure extreme temperatures, survive drought and frost and pollution that would kill either partner alone. They grow so slowly that some lichen colonies are thousands of years old, ancient beings moving across rock at speeds measured in millimeters per century, patient beyond imagining, persistent beyond comprehension. And they ask nothing, need nothing except what they can make together, create between them, build from their cooperation. Perhaps all relationships are like this at their best, two beings becoming something neither could be alone, creating between them a third thing that is more than the sum of its parts, and in that creation finding not the loss of self but the discovery of a larger self, a truer self, a self that can only exist in connection. Your consciousness, if it can still be called that, has expanded to include the trees around you, or perhaps contracted to a single point of awareness smaller than a photon, or perhaps both simultaneously, vast and minute at once, like the universe itself which is infinite in extent but can be understood as originating from a point smaller than an atom. Space and scale have become fluid, relative, meaningless. You are simultaneously the forest entire and the smallest particle of soil, the ancient oak and the nascent seedling, the whole and the part with no contradiction, no conflict, no confusion. This is what mystics try to describe and fail, what poets gesture toward with metaphor, what cannot be spoken but only experienced, the dissolution of boundaries that reveals there never were any boundaries, only the illusion of separation that consciousness creates to navigate the world, useful fiction that becomes invisible prison when we forget it's fiction. In the soil, bacteria are fixing nitrogen, taking it from air spaces between soil particles and converting it into forms that plants can use, a kind of alchemy that makes life on land possible. Without these bacteria, nitrogen would remain locked in the atmosphere, unavailable to the plants and trees that need it to build proteins, to create chlorophyll, to grow and thrive. The bacteria do this work using enzymes so complex that humans have never been able to replicate the process efficiently despite decades of trying. And the bacteria do it constantly, billions of them working simultaneously, transforming the atmosphere into fertility, turning air into life, gifts freely given to the forest that shelters them. Everything serves everything else. Everything gives what it has to give. The forest is a study in reciprocity so complete, so all-encompassing, that the word generous becomes inadequate. This is beyond generosity, beyond altruism, beyond virtue. This is simply the way things work when they work correctly, when each part does what it's designed to do, when the whole system is aligned with its own deepest nature. And you, resting here, are aligned now too, perfectly, completely, without trying, without effort, simply because you've stopped resisting, stopped reaching, stopped trying to be anything other than exactly what you were in this moment. The forest has taught you its final lesson, that alignment is not achievement but surrender, that harmony comes not from forcing but from allowing, that peace is what remains when war with reality finally ends. Let the last thread of separation dissolve. Let the final illusion of boundary fade. Let there be only this, the forest being itself, and you being the forest, and no difference between these statements, no distinction possible, no separation conceivable. You have arrived at the place you never left. You have become what you always were. You are home, and the only home there is, this moment, this breath, this eternal now that contains all moments, all breaths, all nows that have ever been or ever will be. Rest there. Forever, if you like. Or wake when you're ready. The forest makes no demands. It simply holds you, as it has held countless others, as it will hold countless more, patient and eternal and endlessly, impossibly, miraculously alive. There is almost nothing left to say, because there is almost nothing left that is separate enough to speak, to be spoken to hear. Only this last gentle fading, this final letting go, this ultimate release into the vastness that has been waiting all along. Somewhere in the darkness, inside you or outside you, the distinction no longer exists, a seed is germinating. It has been lying dormant in the soil, perhaps for months, perhaps for years, waiting for the exact combination of moisture and temperature and some mysterious internal clock to align. And now, in this moment, its protective coat is softening, swelling with absorbed water, and deep inside, invisible and miraculous, a tiny root begins to unfurl, seeking downward even though it has never known down, has never experienced gravity, simply knows in its cellular wisdom which direction is earth and which is sky. And simultaneously, a stem begins to push upward, seeking light it has never seen, carrying two folded leaves that will open when they finally break through the soil into air. This seed contains the entire future forest in potential, every branch and leaf and root that might grow from it over centuries, every bird that might nest in those branches, every shadow those leaves might cast, all folded impossibly small, waiting. And all it needs is this, darkness, moisture, time, and the willingness to split open, to let the hard protective shell crack and fall away, to emerge vulnerable and soft into a world that might nurture or destroy it. The seed teaches the final lesson, that new life requires the death of old forms, that growth demands vulnerability, that becoming requires the courage to break open and trust that what emerges will be met by a world ready to receive it. Your heartbeat has slowed to something almost geological, one beat, then endless pause, then another beat, as if your heart has learned the rhythm of mountains rising grain by grain, of stones weathering molecule by molecule, of continents drifting on their slow journey across the face of the planet. In this rhythm, there is no urgency, no deadline, no hurry. There is only continuation, the simple fact of persisting, of being here one moment and then the next and then the next, for as long as there is here, as long as there is next, as long as there is anything at all. And when there isn't, when the final beat comes and the pause that follows extends forever, even that will be part of the pattern, part of the continuation in a different form, molecules dispersing into soil and air and water, becoming food for trees, breath for insects, moisture in the morning mist. Nothing ends. Everything continues. The forest knows this in its roots, in its rings, in the ancient patient wisdom that comes from watching a million sunrises and knowing there will be a million more, and if not, if the sun fails to rise, even that will be part of the pattern, part of the great turning, part of the dance that began before stars and will continue after stars, in forms we cannot imagine, following rhythms we cannot hear. Listen now to the deepest silence that has ever been, the silence beneath all other silences, the quiet that exists when even the concept of sound falls away. In this silence, you might hear, or feel, or know, the forest's heart beating, that deep slow pulse of sap and growth and decay and renewal, all happening simultaneously, all part of one vast systemic heartbeat that encompasses every tree and shrub and moss and mushroom, every insect and bird and mammal, every bacterium and virus and spore, all beating together in rhythms so complex they become simple again. Millions of individual patterns creating one meta-pattern, one superorganism, one forest. Breathing as a single entity while also being countless separate beings, the paradox that cannot be resolved through thought but only through this, through being so quiet, so still, so completely at rest that the distinction between observer and observed, between self and forest, between the one and the many finally, utterly, completely dissolves. And in that dissolution, in that final letting go of every boundary, every definition, every category and concept and word, there is peace. Not the peace of accomplishment or arrival, not the peace that comes after struggle or at the end of searching, but the peace that was always here, always available, always present beneath the noise and striving and reaching and grasping. The peace that is simply the ground of being, the fundamental nature of existence when all the additions and elaborations and complications fall away. The peace that asks nothing, promises nothing, leads nowhere because it is already everywhere, already everything, already all that is needed or could ever be needed. The forest has given you this gift. Or perhaps you have given it to yourself. Or perhaps, most likely, there was never a giver or receiver, never a gift or recipient, only this sharing that happens when separate things remember they were never separate, when boundaries dissolve and reveal they were always permeable, when the truth too simple for complexity to grasp finally shines through. You are the forest. The forest is you. And beneath that, beyond that, including that, everything is everything else, temporarily arranged in different patterns, playing different roles, but fundamentally, essentially, eternally one thing experiencing itself in infinite variety. Rest in that knowing. Rest in that oneness. Rest. The trees will stand watch through the night, their roots deep in earth, their crowns lifted toward stars, holding the space between earth and heaven, mediating between dark and light, being exactly what they are with perfect unself-conscious grace. The soil will continue its patient work of transformation, breaking down and building up, ending and beginning, holding death and life in the same handful of earth. The stars will turn overhead, ancient light from distant fires, reminding us that everything we see is already past, already memory, already gone, yet also present, also here, also now in this eternal moment that contains all moments. And you will sleep, perhaps, truly sleep at last, dropping down into dreams or into the dreamless dark beyond dreams, surrendering to the body's need, trusting that you will wake when it's time, that the forest will keep you safe, that you are held by something larger and older and wiser than you can imagine, and that this holding will not fail. Or you will wake, carrying some fragment of this peace back into the complicated world, some seed of forest wisdom planted deep in your heart, waiting to germinate when conditions are right, when you're ready to let it crack you open and grow. Either way, sleeping or waking, staying or leaving, remembering or forgetting, you have been here. You have rested in the forest's arms. You have breathed with ancient trees and merged with living earth. You have touched, however briefly, the truth that lies beneath all the stories we tell, the peace that underlies all the noise, the wholeness that was never broken no matter how fragmented we felt. And that is enough. That is everything. That is all there ever was or could be. The forest releases you now, gently, gratefully, the way a mother releases a child, with love and trust and the certain knowledge that you carry something of this place with you, that you take the forest into the world, that every breath you breathe from now on will contain some memory of this peace, this stillness, this green and growing silence. Go softly. Or stay forever. The forest makes no demands. It simply is. And so are you. And so is everything. And all of it, is held in love so vast and old and patient that it has no beginning and no end, no inside and no outside, no giver and no receiver. Only love, loving itself, in the form of forests and humans and soil and stars, all appearing separate but secretly, beautifully, impossibly one. Rest in that. Forever, if you choose. The forest will be here, breathing, growing, being. Waiting to welcome you home again whenever you're ready to return.